Hello, welcome to the Centre for Legal Innovation's Legal Techy Tuesday series. We are very excited to have Tessa Lal and Mason Maddie with us from Anika Legal here today. Tessa is the co-founder and head of user, and Mason is the experience design lead. Tessa and Mason will be discussing Anika Legal's website and client intake questionnaire and discussing how user-centered design was leveraged in the build. Again, welcome. Fabulous to have you here. And now over to Tessa and Mason.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I am Tess. I am the head of user at Anika Legal. I'm also an innovation facilitator, previously a corporate lawyer, now an innovation facilitator at Herbert Smith Freehills. In my role as head of user at Anika, our team is responsible for ensuring that our users are at the heart of everything we do as an organisation. So that extends to ensuring that we're collecting user feedback, collecting user insights, ensuring that those insights are feeding into the work that we're doing and the development of our service and our product, but also just ensuring that we have a 10 out of 10 user experience. And I think one of the things that really allows us to execute on that objective is the diversity of expertise in our team. And a great example of that is Mason Maddie, who is here with us today. I'll let you introduce yourself, Mace, but just from my end, he does not have a background in law, which means that his eyes are so sharp and on it in discussions, and he's one of those people that in a room of lawyers, he says something and we're like, oh my God, yes. Plus he's got all of the user experience expertise to bring to the table. So feeling very lucky to present with you today. Mace.
Thank you so much, Tess. That's very kind of you. Yes, so I'm the user experience lead at Annika. I was brought in to help facilitate ongoing experience design projects and innovation and tools within Annika. And yes, as Tess said, I'm not from a law background, but it is definitely a very interesting experience working alongside these new products and facilitating new ideas and sessions and workshops and everything that we'll show you how we sort of do those things today.
Excellent. Okay, so what is Annika? Our vision is a world, and this was the vision we had 3 years ago when we started this at a hackathon, vision is a world where everyone can access justice. And our mission is providing access to justice through leveraging practical legal training. So how this practically works is we are an independent legal services provider that gives legal advice to those who can't afford it. But the interesting thing is we have students, so supervised law students, doing the first cut of the advices and really managing the cases, where all of the advice that's given is reviewed and ultimately issued by a supervising solicitor. But the role of the student in there is really important. And that's an interesting part of our business model as well, in that we have universities paying a fee per student enrolled in the Anika unit, which is an important way in which we fund the access to justice piece.
Yeah, so I'll just talk through some of our digital channels now. So our first and most used channel is the website itself. So this is a space where all of our target audiences, clients, funders, anyone who's interested in Annika can come and learn about the products that we offer and the help that we can give to people. So this is a really important space for us, from not only a sort of client and target audience engagement space, but also in an analytics space, tracking how people are using the website and whether they're actually finding the information that they need. Next up is our questionnaire. So once a client actually decides that they want to participate in sort of the Anika experience, or they might need help with our two main products, which are rental repairs and COVID assistance. So that's a rent reduction. So they can go to our website and move into our questionnaire, which allows clients to check whether they're eligible to receive one of our products, or and once they are eligible, I should say, they can then actually go through and tell us about who they are, what their problem is, and then we will create a case for them, which is pushed onto our students. You might want to talk about that a bit, Tess.
Yeah. So I think two really important things happen when a client submits a case, and actually one has just popped up on my phone now. So when a client submits their case, everyone in our organisation of 54 individuals will get a Slack notification. And the Slack notification will say, hey, a client has just submitted their case. This is the kind of case, so it's either a repairs or a COVID case. And this is how they heard about us. And this is incredibly important from a user-focused perspective, because it means that our case team are immediately aware, okay, a client is in the door, we want to service them immediately. Our marketing team, say they've got, 5 clients in a morning, might be thinking, great, that post last night, was really user focused, really connected with our target market, so they can see what's happening. The impact team can see when we're having impact and when might be a slower week. And importantly, it's just a really helpful way to keep our whole organisation really, really closely associated with what's happening on the front line, and what's happening, and just keeping them connected with our users. It's also a nice, it's a nice pick me up, when I see a few clients come, pop up on my phone. It's a feel good moment, I think, to see that we're having impact. The second thing that happens when a client submits their case is a case file is created on Action Step. And Action Step is the case management tool that we use, which has been really good. So that will essentially have the supervising lawyer assigned, the student that's assigned to the case, the paralegal coordinator that's assigned to the case. It will also have all of the precedents they'll need. It's a place where the students can upload their file note, can upload the advices for review. They can send emails to the client from within the platform, such that when you look at a particular case, you can see exactly what's happened, exactly where they're up to, and get a really good snapshot to ensure that our client is being appropriately serviced. Next. Client engagement, a human-centered approach. This is one of my favourite things about Annika, and I think one of the things that's most attractive to students and universities, in that students are the primary relationship holder, so they are responsible for the client communication. And one thing that we have a 9.5 out of 10 client experience satisfaction rating. And one thing that we consistently hear from our clients is that it was incredibly valuable to them to have someone who was holding their hand through the experience, who was empathetic, who was in their corner and kind of took control of the situation. And we absolutely attribute that to the work done by our students and our paralegals. The other interesting thing on this is, when we were researching the viability of the Anika model, back 3 years ago, we noticed that some online legal service provider startups were continuously failing because there was that lack of human connection. So what we've done here is we've tried to streamline it and use tech to kind of strip out all of that admin that admin work, so that students can solely focus on building that relationship and empathizing and really providing that strong human connection.
Yeah, so I guess what we wanted to really kind of bring forward today is how we collect insights from these tools and products and spaces that we have created, and how we use them to make themselves better. So some of the ways that we currently collect insights is through running workshops, and that might be with clients themselves, funders, and also staff, so inwardly facing, so with students and things like that. We collect a lot of qualitative feedback from the pre and post case surveys. So with our students, that rapport that they develop with clients is extremely good, provides extremely good insights at multiple parts within the user journey. Also, we get a lot of quantitative feedback from our website analytics and questionnaire analytics, and that will actually tie into what we talk about in our case studies in a moment, because that quantitative data that flows in is a major part of it in assessing what's going well and what isn't, and how we can sort of work on certain features to make them better.
Agree. Just one point before we go to the next slide. We've had to, when we're doing the user workshops that Mace referred to with our clients, obviously during COVID we can't invite anyone in, so we've been doing virtual workshops. We had one last week, have one next week as well. And this graph at the top here is how we've been facilitating the virtual user workshop. So inviting people into a Zoom, and then post-it noting on a tool called Miro, and then kind of looking for the patterns and progressing those user insights forward accordingly. Next slide. Are we ready for? Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
So how does Annika solve problems? This is sort of the big part of today, and what we hope to help you guys understand about our approach to solving problems in a user-centered way. So next slide. Thank you. So you guys might have heard of the Lean Startup and the sort of build, measure, learn framework. So that's something that we've started to incorporate into our sort of learning and process and building and measuring process. So it's just about solving problems fast, really. So really making sure that we're building something, whether that's a product or a website or any sort of space. It could be a service as well, like our client experience on the phone with students, making sure that we're measuring that product or of what we've built. So the data's coming in, we can make sure that at every stage we're seeing where things are working, where they aren't, and gathering that data to do analytics on it, and then learning from that data. So creating new ideas, being innovative, and then applying that innovation to the same product or new products to once again build on that.
And sorry, Max, did I cut you off?
No, go for it.
I was just going to say this cycle is so important to us, and I think one of the biggest levers we can pull to have community impact, and equally one of the biggest users, law firms, big law, smaller practices, businesses have generally to increase client base and increase traction and impact in the market, is the speed at which we can respond to emerging community need, or the speed in which you can respond to your client's need. And a really good example of this was recently with the COVID product. So we started off just providing repairs advice. And so if a tenant has something in their home that needs to be repaired, Annika can help them. But in COVID, we're hearing from our clients and our typical users that they'd been financially hit by COVID, and they were struggling to pay their rent. So something that we thought was perhaps we can assist them in getting a letter to their landlord seeking a rent reduction, and then assist them in negotiating with their landlord. And from that need emerging, it took us 3 weeks to take that product to market. And I think that speed in which we were able to deliver on that need was really important for us there. And we went from getting 5 clients a week to 5 clients a day very quickly. So that ability, and equally, as soon as we released it, we were continuously hearing feedback from our users as to, okay, this is what landlords are saying, this is what's working, this is what isn't working, and we were able to iterate our product accordingly and ensure that we were responding to practically where the need is at.
Yeah, absolutely. And that feeds perfectly into sort of the next level down that I wanted to talk about. So breaking that down into sort of a more tangible way of kind of thinking about the build, measure, learn, is that we'll see a customer problem arise, just like Tess mentioned with COVID. It didn't really fit into our current model. And so we took that customer problem and we created a hypothesis or multiple hypotheses to say, what do we believe would solve this problem well? And then thinking about success metrics. So how do we measure whether our hypothesis has been successful or not? So when a customer problems arise, we are being creative, but we're also being scientific, because we can build something new and innovative and something that people might not have experienced before or have and really enjoyed. But without tracking that and making sure that it's successful, we wouldn't be building things which people would continually want to use. So we now just wanted to go into some case studies, and if you have any questions about what we've talked about so far, I realize we go pretty quick and we talk quite fast. Please feel free to jump into the Q&A and we'll talk about it.
That's one of my areas for development, learning to talk slower.
We've got one.
You got one?
You want to hear it? You ready for this?
Go for it.
The question is, how do you coach students, paralegals on call quality with clients? And what's being asked is, do you kind of dual headset it? So do you listen to the calls or do something similar in terms of using tech and provide feedback kind of as it's going? Or do you do a bit of a feedback session at the end? So how are you kind of managing that quality control aspect of all of that?
Mace, can I jump in on this one?
Yeah, great question. You go for it.
Awesome. So that training piece is incredibly important. And given, as I said earlier, pretty much the biggest role of the paralegal is that client communication. That's something we train really comprehensively. So recently, with our first cohort of students, we teamed up with Herbert Smith Freehills to present this training on solid client communication. And that is, interestingly, the feedback we were getting from students is they had never really had the opportunity to develop those skills at universities, just because I think lack of exposure, lack of opportunities to do it. So they don't need to be trained on it, and they don't, practice makes perfect. They don't get the opportunity to become perfect. So we do a lot of teaching, I guess, the theory behind how to have a strong client communication and build a relationship, and then also a lot of role playing again and again to feel comfortable. I think it's also, we have to keep in mind for our students that we are dealing with clients who are vulnerable, who have lost faith in the justice system, who are dealing with really difficult problems, and to learn how to guide them back to what we are helping them with, as opposed to going in another direction, which is really, you're not dealing with business people who know what they want to do. You're dealing with vulnerable people who have a real problem. So it's a real skill that requires a lot of training. But then, no, we don't listen to their conversations. We provide a paralegal coordinator for every paralegal and a supervising lawyer who can debrief and after the call. We don't listen to the call itself.
But the focus at that point, Tessa, if I'm correct, is really on getting the information, obviously establishing the relationship that makes it easier for that flow, but getting the information, and then the legal overlay is with the folks that you were talking about.
Correct. Yes. So the student is only responsible for collecting the information and then relaying the information that comes from our supervising solicitor. That's right, Terry. Yeah.
I'm going to hide again now. Bye.
Thanks so much for that. And yeah, feel free to ask as many questions as you like. We're happy to answer all of them. We're going to move into some case studies now, and I will talk through part of the first one. So we had found a customer problem around our questionnaire. So I'll get you to jump to the next slide, please, Tess. So the customer problem was clients are dropping off early in the questionnaire before we can capture their data. So this was quite a significant problem we were having, where I think it was around 60 or 70% of our client base was going into our questionnaire, which is hosted on outside of our website, so we can track it more accurately. And we're finding that beyond the first question, we were having a significant drop off of our user base. And so we really needed to change things so that we could figure out why and what was how people were perceiving the questionnaire itself and why they were dropping off so early on. So we created a hypothesis, which is on the next slide. Thank you. So we said, I believe that simplifying the questionnaire and capturing client data early will significantly reduce this drop-off rate. And so when I say simplifying, I mean sort of like breaking the questionnaire down. In our current model, we have multiple questions on each page, and from that, it's hard to track where people might be becoming scared, because it is quite a sensitive sort of environment. They might also be missing information if we're asking about, say, landlord details or things like that. And we weren't giving enough space to find out where the true problems were. And now, simplifying things might make the questionnaire easier for us to track, but if we can't track the user themselves, we can't actually help them sort of get back into the questionnaire and finish it off, so we can help them if they do need help. So we needed to really bring not all of their personal information, but some of their personal information earlier into the questionnaire, so that if we had their name and their email address, we could reach out and say, hey, look, are you still okay? Can we help out at all? Do you need help finishing the questionnaire? There could have been accessibility problems. So we just wanted to really bring that up front. We thought that this hypothesis was a good way of reducing that drop-off rate. So then we attached a success metric to that. So we said that a drop-off rate of less than 10% before the client email is collected, which is at around the third question, I believe. Yeah, it says 3 there. So less than 10% before the client email is collected would be acceptable. We're tracking this currently. So we'll be able to provide you with those details on our next impact report. But the real sort of takeaway that we wanted to provide you guys with today is that if you implement this scientific practice, you can put success metrics against your hypothesis. And if they do fail, you can go back, create a new approach, and make sure that you're tracking that to help your ideas become successful. Did you want to say anything there, Tess?
No, that was perfect. As per usual.
So that's case study 1. If you have any questions about it, chuck it in the Q&A. Again, more than happy to answer them, but we will move on to the second case study now. So the second case study was more around our funders. So we had the customer problem, which was, next slide. Thank you. So there's no single source of truth for our impact data on the website. Pretty simple problem. We had a beautiful impact report, which I've taken a snippet of and put it on the side there. It's got all sorts of useful data, beautiful icons, really nice and easy to access for people who could find it. And that was our big problem, is that we had all this beautiful data and these customer insights and feedback. We had testimonials from clients saying how much they enjoyed our service and all of these sorts of things. And I guess the real problem here was that if you're a current funder and you are already involved with Annika, then we would be providing you with this information on quite a regular basis. But if you were someone who was interested in becoming a new funder or interested in our impact and the ways that we're helping the community, that was a little bit tricky to find. It was a bit sort of spread out across the website and in media, social media channels and stuff like that. So we really needed to consolidate this. And so our hypothesis was, next slide, please. Thank you. So very, very simple solution here. And I'm sure everybody could say that this is a bit of an obvious one, but it still is extremely important when people want that single source of truth. So I believe that creating an Our Impact page will allow funders to more easily locate and understand our impact data. So good usability and user interface design, making the data that we think is important relevant and upfront, and attaching that to our vision, giving testimonials of real life customers who are satisfied with our products is also something that interested parties would like to hear. So building this out was something that we thought was really important for people to know where they can find all this information about Annika. And I'll let Tess talk a little bit about our success metric there.
I'm getting a notification saying my internet is unstable. So if I cut out, I'll let you.
You seem fine to me.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, so success metric, getting funding and having, importantly, funders, philanthropic funders who have provided us with funding coming back to continue that funding. And I think for us, it's really important that our funders feel comfortable with the impact that is arising as a result of their investment, and that they are clearly aware of what that impact is. One thing that we're mindful of when looking at the results here and the success metrics is that we are going through a really difficult time with COVID-19, and the money that may have that would usually be on the table is no longer on the table in many situations. So we are looking at this as a time where it's particularly important that we're clearly articulating our funding, our impact. Particularly so because we are helping with those affected by COVID-19. So being really clear on how we're articulating that impact, how we're articulating our COVID impact is really important during this time. But we are mindful of those circumstances when we're looking at whether our hypothesis was correct. Anything else to add to that, Mace?
No, that was perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, case 3. So we have multiple tech needs and limited resources. This is everyone's problem, I'm sure. You want to do a lot, but you only have so many people and only have so much money. So the specific problem was actually, for context, so as you know, we've got two parts of Anika. So firstly, the advice that we deliver to clients, vulnerable clients, and secondly, the education that we provide to students. And once we had launched the client service, and that was going really well, we always had students in there as a part of it, but we looked at building a really tight university unit that students could enroll in and get credit for. And our product team built out a beautiful manual prototype of that. But we knew, and our students who were testing it were telling us, there are so many improvements here, so many tech opportunities, a really tight process, but there are things that we can do. Our issue from Anika was, we only have so many resources. So what do we do? The hypothesis was that if we run a workshop testing the whole service, so not just testing the unit, not just having students look at the unit itself, actually simulating the whole experience, so getting in fake clients, getting in supervising lawyers, getting in your paralegal coordinators, and bringing in students and putting them in conditions that it would be, they were alone in rooms just with the materials, there's time pressure, there's client pressure, make them test the unit, and then they can identify the most pressing needs for us, then that will be the best investment of our money. Mace, obviously this has been we approached this test in an iterative way. Do you want to talk through the difference of why we went for that approach?
Sure. So I guess we believe that it's always good to get something out there. So although we have limited resources and time and budget and all those sorts of things, getting somewhere, just getting something, whatever that may be, whether it's a website up or if you want to build an app, or you need to get your student service and client interactions up and running, just the best way to do it is to iterate. Your first instance may be something small, and you might get feedback like we did from our students saying, there's so many opportunities here, there's all of this. And then you can go back to that sort of build, measure, learn framework and think, all right, so we've built something. It's a bicycle, as you can see on the screen, but everybody's saying that it could be a motorbike. So we get all of our students to come in and say, all right, well, how can we solve this problem and how can we make it better? If we tried to make it perfect and tried to make it the car or the truck that we always wanted it to be, to carry all of our problems to the finish line, we probably would never get there, or it'd take too long. And things usually change. And I guess that's the beauty of working sort of agile, is that once you get to the end, when you're doing incremental work, the world might be a bit different and you might not actually be that relevant anymore. So iterating and making sure that you're listening to people and building on your ideas is extremely important to us.
Love it. And it's interesting as you say this. So I think that if an issue that I often see in a big law environment and when working with lawyers is that there is that leaning towards incremental development. So making sure a particular part of a process is perfect before moving on to the next. And if we were to have done this in an incremental way, we would have brought in students and brought in the manual and asked them to review it and make sure it's perfect and kind of create the student unit and ensure that we're comfortable with that before we test the whole, the whole service with clients and lawyers together. But if we did it in that way and we just had the students and just had the student manual being tested, we wouldn't have got the rich data in terms of, missing, feeling pressure from a lawyer or feeling pressure from a client, which is completely relevant to the student manual and the student learning experience itself. So testing things as a whole to the extent that you can, even if you're not comfortable with the components, is something been really important to us. Okay, hypothesis. Oh yes, Terry. Yes,
Terry's back. Yeah.
Yeah, and
I love when Terry comes back.
I know, that's the trigger. And the question is about a trigger, and it's one that's popped up, and I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit. But what's the trigger for you to iterate? So, how does that information kind of come, and then how do you turn it into a hypothesis, and how often? And hopefully that question makes sense. But it's kind of like, how does that bubble up to something that you then do something with? Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to go, Mace?
Yeah, sure.
Or,
so, I guess it's a little bit of intuition and a bit of sort of analysis. So when we get whether it's qualitative or quantitative data coming in, you might see a small change in things that says, or say, let's use the questionnaire as an example. Let's say we had maybe a 40% drop-off rate instead of, say, a 70% drop-off rate of those first few questions. We might start sort of tracking that a little bit more, and it might start just raising a little flag to say, hello, something might be wrong here. And so we might take that as the sort of user group, and Matt, who's our backend developer and does our analytics, will pass that information to us and say, look, I've been doing my weekly reports and I've seen some sort of anomalies popping up, or I've been tracking this for a few weeks and it's starting to get a bit bad. So that would be one of the triggers. We also engage with students and clients quite regularly. We have pre-engagement and post-engagement surveys, and that survey data is collated. And so when we get sort of that data back, and if it has any sort of consistent concerns from clients coming out, that would also be a trigger to us. You can also, so if say people on the line, if you have a website or something like that, monitoring user behavior on the website, if there's a lot of, say, scrolling going on, or you're receiving a lot of contact emails rather than people finding things on the website, that could be a trigger for you as well. It is a little bit contextual to how your product works and how your service works, but those are the sorts of triggers that we would see. Once those triggers are identified, it does become a very collaborative process. We'll engage everyone and anyone who would like to participate in our sort of ideation sessions and say, well, what do you think is wrong? How would you solve it? And then as a group, we'll identify customer problems and business opportunities, which we'll then hypothesize upon to say, I believe that if we do this, this will become better. And then we can talk about those success metrics. And for new products, those success metrics can be a little tricky because you're not quite sure how you're going to monitor, track the things that you're building, because it is quite new, and that's okay. You just got to kind of keep an eye on it. But if it's an existing product and your customer problems arose from specific data points, then you can go back to those data points when you talk about your success metrics. So questionnaire again. If it's sitting at 70%, we've said that less than 10% is acceptable with our new questionnaire, and that's easy for us to monitor.
So, Mace, just so I can clarify that, and Tessa, for you too.
Sure.
I mean, obviously, folks are tracking the data, and so there's a process for them to kind of get that workshop, for want of a better expression. But it sounds like you're also having pretty regular sessions where anyone can bring an idea to that as well, and you'll kind of look through that. And the reason that I'm particularly asking this question, as you folks well know, in law firms, it's very often not the shortage of ideas, but the process that gets kind of blocked in various places to get those ideas, you know, rocking and rolling somewhere and getting someone actually paying attention to it. So that's in particular why I'm asking a little bit more about that process, if I may.
I think you're entirely right. I definitely find that there is never any shortage of ideas in Annika or in the big law context that I work in. I think what's really important is ideas around the right things. So making sure that we're finding out what are our clients' biggest problems. It doesn't matter how cool the idea is or how tech savvy it is or how exciting it is. If it doesn't correspond to our clients' biggest problems, it's just not a priority for us. So something that we have, Mace has a lot of experience with the website. Previously in Annika, I have sat within our product team, and that's looking at this, you know, the precedents and the advice itself that we're providing to the client. And they will have product and operations, so the paralegal team providing this service, and then also the impact team who are measuring feedback. They'll provide weekly updates on what our clients are saying to the product team, and the product team will ideate to solve each of those bugs, right? So they'll have a list of bugs, and the product team will say, okay, these are the highest ranked bugs this week, and this is what's coming up again and again. This is how we're going to solve for them, and then they'll be incorporated back into the product. So this is happening regularly. And again, if the bug continues, they'll ideate again to try to find a different solution, or if it goes away, then they know that solution was appropriate. But I think that's so right. Ensuring that the ideas are addressing the biggest problems is crucial.
Thank you. Going now. Bye.
Okay, so back to, sorry, Mace.
Back to you.
Okay.
Yeah, back to you.
So back to this problem this hypothesis that we had for this testing day. So there we go. So we did the testing day. We did a call out to users, to students who had no experience with Annika. They hadn't worked within our organisation before. They would be coming in completely fresh. And then we invited them to test the unit. So as you can see, they've got the manual here, just a paper manual. We had some rules about the experiment that we would be running, and of course some snacks as you need. And then we simulated the whole case from start to finish, and then we got a whole heap of feedback from them: what worked, what they liked, what they didn't like, and then what they wanted to see improved. There were two key tech requests that they had. One was a portal where they could see how the case is tracking and have all the emails stored in the one place, as opposed to them coming into their email box, because emails were just getting lost. Approvals to send advices or make certain actions were getting lost in their inboxes, which was really detrimental to the outcome of some of the cases, the fake cases. And then the other request was document automation. So instead of them populating the precedents, having that process automated, pulling the data from the intake questionnaire. But then we asked them, of those two tech needs, which is most important to you? And there was an overwhelming preference for the portal, so to have a case management platform. And that is why we invested in Action Step. The success metric for us would be improved student experience. Oh, sorry.
Do you mind if I just jump in there for a second? So I just wanted to talk about this a little bit in context of our process that we've set out here. So you've got your customer problem. And so we realized that there was a customer problem, but to create that hypothesis, we brought our students along to find out what they believe would help the most. So you may not be directly able to generate hypotheses or generate what you believe to be good solutions straight from a customer problem. You may want to reach out to the people that are directly experiencing those problems to develop your hypotheses. So from our workshop that we did here, we were able to see what the students really needed, and that was the portal. So we believe that the workshop would help us facilitate, create other hypotheses which solved the problem as a whole.
Good point. Very, very good point. And then the success metric, for us was improved student experience. And I think we were at an 8 out of 10 for the student experience at that point. And it's certainly been significantly higher in our pilot. And we've been getting overwhelming feedback from the students on the experience that they're having, positive feedback about just operating in such a streamlined way. So we consider that to be a really good investment, and one that we're really happy that we were led by the students there, because we think they definitely enabled us to make the right decision. Oh, Mace.
All right. So we just wanted to kind of reiterate what we've
My connection's unstable again.
That's okay. We're still getting you coming through fine.
Okay.
So just wanted to talk a little bit about what you can take away from this session and how to make your project or platform more user-centered. So next slide. So just a few takeaways, and these were the big ones that we wanted to point out. So first one being be creative, which is always extremely important, but also be scientific. There's no such thing as a bad idea. Be creative, push boundaries, be innovative, design new things, think about things in different ways. One way that I really like to do that is to invite people that aren't necessarily designers or people that you would say build things to your ideation sessions and to your sort of where you're gathering your data, and see what sorts of ideas come out, because you'll be surprised at how people approach different problems. But always remember that you want to be able to track those ideas, and how you implement them needs to be measured. And that leads straight into the build, measure, learn. So the iterative approach rather than the incremental one. If you can get something which is sort of a minimum viable product, an MVP, out into the market, the more data you can gather on that, the faster you can build and learn from your first iteration to make your version 1, your version 2, and create something that fulfills everything that you want it to. And the third one being, gather data whenever, wherever, and however you can. At Annika, we use multiple different avenues, like as we've explained today, with our analytics software, surveys. But also, if you're a bit smaller than that, and you can just walk over and watch someone use your product over their shoulder and ask them questions and engage with them over the phone, any way that you can see how people are experiencing your product or platform and get feedback on is always valuable. Do you have anything to say there, Tess? I think we're losing Tess a little bit.
No, that was perfect, Mace.
Okay, so we might open it up for questions now. If anybody has any.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're at question time.
Question time. So there is a question here. I'm just going to basically read it. Do most of your clients come through independently, or do you have community partners who refer clients to you?
Good question. I think that's one for Tess.
Yes. Just let me know if my internet is looking to be quite shoddy right now. So let me know if I cut out, maybe in the questions tab. So do most of your clients come through independently, or do you have community partners? So yes, we found that it's probably about 50-50. So we have some wonderful will refer to us. We're also partnered with Tenants Victoria, who, can you hear me?
Yes. Well, it's skipping a little bit, but keep going. It's catching up. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If Mace answers the next one, I'll join through my phone in a moment. But we are partnered with Tenants Victoria, who refer to us service clients that we can service quite efficiently. That's really important. And then the other 50% would be coming through seeing us on social media or
Yeah, I think that we got that. It's about 50-50. Is that sound about right? Is that right, Mace? It's about 50-50.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. I have a quick question for you, Mace, actually. And
sure.
It's kind of, you've described an amazing process, frankly, that really feeds into that kind of opportunity to be able to continuously innovate. I mean, you're living proof of that fact. But I'm just wondering, for the folks that are watching this and are kind of trying to work out where to start, they don't have this skill set, they don't know where to start. They might be small organisations, maybe even a sole practitioner who wants to do this. How can they acquire these skills? Like, where should they go? Is it a matter of coming to folks like you and getting advice, or if you don't really know where to start, how do you start that?
Yeah, so I'm always around if people want to reach out to me and have a chat. I'm always happy to answer questions. I think that's always a good way to not so much get your foot in the door, but get a bit of a more general understanding of how sort of user-centered processes work. The internet, of course, has a multitude of good spaces, UX Collective, Medium. If you just kind of search like how to build, measure, learn, the things that I've talked about today, talking about solving customer problems, those sorts of searches will bring up so much. But also just I think reaching out to people who you admire and you like their processes and talking to them about how they engage with their users and how they iterate on their products, you'll find that a lot of people have absolutely brilliant ways of doing things, and this very much is our way that we do it and we find successful. But just like the process itself, you might need to adapt and change that process to fit in with how you work. There's no wrong way of doing these things. If you're measuring and being scientific and then being creative out the other end of that, that's always going to produce something, whether it's a success or a failure. I think one thing that I would like to add that I find very helpful when I'm creating something new or fresh, I like to start with a vision. So what do I believe in the world will change when I create this product? So setting a vision for yourself is almost like the very beginning of that incremental space, but instead of immediately trying to achieve your vision, you take a small problem and you create a first instance and go, okay, does this work? And then you wait for people to say, no, it's horrible. And then you say, why? And they say, because of this. And you go, okay, let's try it this way. And then you just start that loop going. It's all about customer, user, staff interaction, person to person.
The other thing I'd add to that, Mace, is if there are lawyers on the line who might not be stuck in product development and are actually just thinking about how to create a more human-centered approach to the work that they do, even as a lawyer, I think that there are some amazing lawyers who I've worked with who are incredibly user-centered and they don't even know it. And it's really just listening. They don't think of themselves that way because they think about being amazing service providers, listening to their clients, actually asking for feedback. So when you finish a matter, what worked, what didn't work, and being willing to have that conversation and willing to hear negative feedback, and then doing that retro, doing that debrief at the end and saying, okay, based on all of these things that you didn't appreciate last time, you didn't enjoy, we're going to do this differently. We're going to make sure that we get X to you by X date, or, we give you these more regular updates in this way so you can fit it into your report that you have to give to your, whoever you need to pass it on to. And just listening and actually doing something about it goes, a long way. And to me, that's being human-centered.
Yeah, and as you're saying, as you folks have done, I think developing it with your clients along the way.
Exactly.
About, that it's not a closed loop, it's an open loop and an open opportunity. And I think, like you're then creating product that your clients need and want. You're also creating a pretty amazing relationship with those people. Incredibly important too.
Yeah, that's very important to us. And I think one last thing I'd like to add is that I guess people listening might think that this is a bit blue sky, or you might not have the ability to just say, well, I'm not going to listen to anything that the business has to say. I'm just going to listen to everything the user has to say. And that's obviously not something that is always available. But I think when you're talking about success metrics, your business success metrics may be incorporated into that, whether you have specific KPIs or business needs that need to be achieved. If you are even just putting your impact reports or your testimonials from clients and trying to marry the business needs and goals with your customer needs and goals, you will come out with a better product than if you just kind of not listening to what users are saying.
Yeah, there's kind of no point in having clients if you don't really listen to them. It's a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
Look, just a fantastic opportunity to spend time with the both of you. Congratulations on what Anika Legal is doing and what you're achieving. It is truly amazing, and we're a proud supporter of what you're doing and just delighted to continue to see your success. So Tessa and Mason, thank you so much for your time today, and very importantly, the amazing job that you're doing. Thank you very much. Great to have you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here, and we certainly the support of the community and learning from other people in the community, the Centre for Legal Innovation, the Landers Law Tech Hub. I think the extent to which we learn from those relationships cannot be underestimated. We're really grateful for it, so thank you for having us here today.
And vice versa, what we learn from you. And folks, I know that you're open to folks approaching you after this. So if any things occur to people afterwards, I know that you're open to that. And, from the Centre's point of view, obviously this will be made available for folks to catch up on, to watch with their colleagues and friends, and obviously also to recommend it to other folks. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of that as well. So do keep watching us on LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and all of those good things, and we'll let you know what's happening there, as you folks will keep us up to date as well. So on that note, and again, thank you very much. Thank you to everyone who attended. It has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, Terry, thank you so much. And Christine, have a lovely day, yeah?
Yeah. Bye.